take you back to our colleagues at MSNBC who are speaking to the Speaker of the President of the United States this afternoon. Let's have a listen in.
That should have been avoided. And yes, the Office of the Capitol Physician does have a follow-up tracing plan in the Capitol of the United States. It's in touch with the District of Columbia, because we fall under their auspices.
I want to go back and talk about how you're looking to help the American people. In the House, you passed a $2 trillion COVID relief bill last night,
right.
But 18 Democrats still voted against it. One of the biggest sticking points has been state and local funding. You've got $436 billion in there for state and local. Can you help us understand where that money would go? And is that a place where you could compromise? We know they need the money, but for a lot of people, that's a huge number.
Well, it's half of what we did. We had $915 billion based on the needs, and it's called the HEROES Act because that's what it's about. Our heroes, our healthcare workers, our first responders, police and fire. It is about our food workers, transportation, sanitation, our teachers, many of whom are losing their jobs now in terms of our teachers. So it is there so that they without them, we could not even function. And so what we're saying is we do not want them to risk their lives, to save other lives, and risk losing their jobs in the meantime, and then have to go on unemployment insurance. What is the good of that? So we're in our negotiations. Most of the people who voted against the bill voted against the original HEROES Act. And then on top of that said, we want to vote for a bipartisan bill. Well, we will have a bipartisan bill. That's our goal to have. But I thought it was really important, and I thank you for your question, for the American people to know. It's about honoring our heroes, not honoring them by having a cutout of them at a football game and saying we're honoring our heroes by having a cutout. That's a good thing, a recognition. But the honor is to help them keep their jobs, and which help keep us functioning. Secondly, it is to crush the virus. Now, I think we're coming to terms in terms of the money on crushing the virus finally, but it's the language that is important. And that's, as I said before, some of our work that we're continuing is to make sure that they agree to the language for a strategic plan, which they have. We've had money for testing all along, but they haven't implemented it. And you can see they haven't even given a good example of what should be done. Frank Pallone, the chair of Energy and Commerce, has a strategic plan in there that we have to do. And now I think on that we are coming to terms. And then putting money in people's pockets. Some of these people were supporting legislation, and I love the vitality of my caucus, and I support every idea that people bring forward. I welcome it. But the fact is, very important to the overwhelming majority of our caucus is how we meet the needs of a family of four making $20,000 a year. It's about.
But, ma'am.
That is not in the Republican plan or any of the bipartisan plans, and that is very important to us. Whether it's earned income tax credit, whether it's a child tax credit refundable. We don't have to people said, take a half a loaf. Well, we don't have to take a heel of the bread for our children, and I think that we can get there. And the state and local is very important. We'll see what other assistance we have within the bill for our workers, and that's what a negotiation is.
Absolutely, and certainly our heroes, our American families don't deserve a heel. But you tried to get the HEROES Act passed months ago, and it didn't happen. If Republicans in the Senate don't sign off on this, they won't be getting anything. Is there a specific area where you can give a little?
I'm not going to negotiate with all the respect in the world for you. I'm not going to be negotiating that here. I'm very concerned about the jobs report that has an impact on many of these same families. I'm very concerned that these families in some of those bills didn't have very much for rental assistance, food assistance. There are many ways to help people, and there are many ways to ignore their needs. And the Republicans on the Senate side have found a way to ignore their needs. They press the pause button. They said the state should go bankrupt. The president has said, I'm not doing state and local because it's mostly blue states that had the bigger needs. So we don't want them to politicize this. We want it to be where we address the outlay of funds for the coronavirus and their loss of revenue. And this is stimulus. All that I mentioned is stimulus. And as you know, the CARES bill was helpful. The way we negotiated to be a more worker-oriented than trickle down that the Republicans originally proposed, a very important part of the strength of our economy. This bill will be too. But again, we're not just taking the path of least resistance because everybody says, well, just take something. Something's better than nothing. No, something could be a missed opportunity. And again, I'm very unhappy that it took them 4.5 months to finally say, okay, we have to do something. Now let's have our negotiation. We'll get something done. And again, some of our members just are never going to vote for any of it. So, and I respect that.
But could this be a moment where maybe Republicans take a different position? The president testing positive is a very scary wake-up call, especially for those who thought that COVID was behind us. Have you heard from any Republicans this morning who are now more willing to come to the negotiating table, realizing that maybe they need to do more in their home states in order to protect people? As you said earlier, if the president that has the best protections out there can contract this, what does it mean for the rest of the country?
Well, I'm negotiating with the administration, and if we come to terms, I believe that the Republicans and they communicate with the Republicans in the House and in the Senate. But no, I haven't heard from any of them. They basically, in most cases, mimic what the president says about masks, about distancing, and the rest, which is most unfortunate. That's why we had to institute rules in the chamber in terms of mask wearing being required. You don't have a mask, you can't come in. You don't have a mask, we have one for you. And then the distancing, that's hard, the distancing, because people are trying to communicate about legislation and the rest. But I do think that the situation with the president then makes it clear that everybody has to keep their distance on both sides of the aisle. But it is, let us, forgetting disagreements, let's be thinking in a positive way about how we go forward. Because this is can be a serious diagnosis. Hopefully this won't be so serious for the president, but by dint of age, he's younger than I am, so I can say that, and shall we say other considerations, I'm glad that he will have the best possible care, and I hope that we can, in our legislation, make sure that that's available for everyone in our country, because none of us is safe until we are sure that everybody is safe. So none of us can escape this. As it relates to that legislation, you're not saying it's my way or the highway. You've been negotiating. No. You've been meeting with Steve Mnuchin all week long. How confident are you that something will pass, and what's the timing, in your opinion? You said it very clearly, as you usually do. This kind of changes the dynamic because here they see the reality of what we have been saying all along. This is a vicious virus, and it spreads, as the president has known from the start, but as has been revealed, it's airborne. It's not just about my touching an arm thing on a plane. It's airborne, and that makes it more dangerous. So it is, I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic. We always have to find a path. That is our responsibility to do so, and I believe that we will. But understand that you talk about people suffering. They really are. And again, if you've lost your job and lost your health care and you're food insecure and you're on the verge of eviction, Mitch McConnell pushing the pause button and saying states should go bankrupt, and 20 to 25 members of the Senate saying, I'm not spending $1 more on this. Well, we can't go as slow as the slowest ship in the Senate. This is a bandwagon. It's not a convoy. We have to get together on it, find our areas of agreement, and enforce it. And the language has to be followed. It's not just about the money. It's about the strategic thinking to go into it. This is a horrible thing that has happened to our country, affecting the health and well-being of the American people, our lives, our livelihood, and the life of our democracy, as a matter of fact. And that's part of our differences in this legislation, too, in terms of what it means to our elections and how we support the integrity of our elections and the good health of people to be able to choose to vote without risking their health. So again, I don't ever put anything out as a deal breaker, but I do want to weigh the equities involved and not just say, why don't we just... They didn't even have a bill until recently. You know, we're talking about 4.5 months ago. Now, why don't you just do their bill? Why don't you just do that bill? Really? Well, we didn't just do... It's a negotiation. And again, we don't have shared values. Make sure you understand that. We don't have shared values. We have to fight for poor children. We have to fight for food. We have to fight for funding for rental. We have to fight for our heroes so they don't lose their jobs as they try to save lives. We have to fight to crush the virus. That's why we haven't had a bill so far. And again, I came down $1 trillion and then another $200 billion. Not that we eliminated priorities, but we changed the timetable for how long that would last. And then we took some things out and put them in the appropriations bill because that's imminent now, too. It's so late that's imminent that we have to come to terms once again to keep government open. I'm very pleased with our bipartisan legislation to keep government open that passed the Senate on Wednesday night. The president signed it Thursday morning. So then some of the benefits that we got in there for food and the rest could flow as well as the government continue. But now we have to have the bill that takes us forward, the fuller bill, not the continuing resolution. But and Anita Lowy, the chair of the Appropriations Committee, has been a wonderful leader in that regard, putting forth priorities. I'm an appropriator. That's one of the places I was forged in Congress, the Intelligence Committee, Appropriations Committee. And in those days, both we worked in a bipartisan way, and I left to their own devices, the appropriators can figure out some of what needs. For example, on our appropriations priorities, we cut it all the way back to $144 billion. It has like $32 billion for transportation. It has big items in there. We cut it down to $144 billion. They said they wanted to take out $44 billion more. So we're saying to them, what do you think is not important here? Or can we cut some of the priorities, give them a haircut? So those are the kinds of, it's language, it's items, it's overall, but it is necessary. And we want to have an agreement, and that's one of the reasons why I've said to people, don't have this heel of the loaf of bread. We have to have something that does the job, and that small bill would never have the votes on the Democratic side, mind you. But nonetheless, what the Republicans were proposing would never have the votes on the House. And that's not what is a negotiation, and that's not what bipartisanship is. We, as Democrats, maybe because I'm a woman, you expect me to accept, some people expect me to accept whatever they put out. But when I put something out, it's not. It's so partisan. When they put it out, it's, why don't you take that? When we put it out, it's so partisan. But you know what? We'll find our middle ground. We're legislators. We'll get the job done. And again...
Well, we'll leave that interview with the Speaker of the House there, Nancy Pelosi, who, of course, is it third in line should the president become incapacitated. She was just being asked a few questions about testing. She is awaiting her results, we were told, and she said that going into crowds without a mask is brazen. But a few